Episode 4 of Pace and Space is back on deck. You know, we made y'all wait an extra day. We apologize, but we're adults with careers and lives, and sometimes things don't quite work out the way you want them to. But there won't be a week that you won't get your daily or weekly dose, I should say, of Pace and Space. It's your boy Jav here. We have Macito on deck. You already know the dynamic duo for the NBA talk, the women's basketball talk, a little bit of college basketball. We might even get into some high school at a certain point. But as you follow in, and if you or if you're watching this after the official streaming of it, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. We're a new channel. We're trying to grow, and you can help us do that absolutely for free by hitting like, comment, and subscribe. Absolutely run those comments up. Spam the comments because that tells YouTube that this video means something. And if it means something, more eyeballs will get on it. Mace, what's the word, man?
Listen, Jav, the most dynamic duo in podcasting is back, just like you said. Listen, it's feeling like 4 games in 5 nights tonight, but the playoffs are near, man. Playoff push. So listen, we're going to make it happen as always.
Listen, man, the playoff push is here. Considering we're a new podcast, we're trying to make the play-in. We're trying to lock in at least the 10th seed and figure some things out. And you saw just last season, we had a play-in team make it to the conference finals, and we had a play-in team make it to the finals. So just because we in the play-in don't mean we ain't like that, you know?
Right.
But
no Paul George is on this team.
No Paul George is on this team. But there's also a new podcast with a star of that podcast lingering in the play-in for the NBA. And his name is LeBron James. Launches a new podcast with JJ Redick. You know what I mean? I think it's called Mind the Game. Right. And it's very interesting that LeBron James rolls out a new podcast with JJ Redick at this time of the season. And it happened relatively quickly. There was no teasers. There was no little nuggets or crumbs that made us wonder, would LeBron ever jump into the pod game? We got an announcement, I think a week out, and then within about 5 to 6 days, we had an episode. You know what I mean? So, Macito, you see what's going on here. We both not only keep our eyes on our particular podcast, this and the Rap Roundtable, but we also keep our eyes on the podcast landscape. You see LeBron James into this. I feel like there's a massive shift in the dynamics of NBA podcasts immediately, NBA player podcasts immediately. What are your thoughts?
Listen, Jav, I'm not only blown away by the announcement in the pod, but just like you say, Jav, the prospect for the future. Because listen, I know we say LeBron is a terrible GM. I know he got Westbrook on his team, but when it comes to the media game, this guy is as savvy as there's ever been an athlete. Hooking up with JJ Redick, I mean, his pod might, as 2 podcasters, JJ Redick is one of, if not the top basketball podcast in the game. He's, him and Shannon Sharp are the 2 hottest faces to bring the ESPN First Take. He just got the NBA Finals gig, you know what I mean, playing, the Mark Jackson or Jeff Van Gundy role for whatever, in the new broadcasting. JJ Redick is the LeBron James of the media game right now. So LeBron hooking up with him for quite a little reminiscent of Kobe's detail. Yeah. I think Amin El Hassan said that, and speaking of Amin El Hassan, that jump shot, Job, I don't mean to go left immediately, but Amin.
I'm going to come clean. If it's Amin El Hassan slander, we can go left as much as we want. And you know what? Let's be clear. Amin, in the beginning, he was one of my favorite NBA personalities. I was a big fan, especially in the early Strength in Numbers Warrior run, when they would do the Patino game on site at Oracle. I was a big fan of him. It was him and it was 2 other basketball nerds who were a part of it. You remember their names, Mace?
Nah, was it Halbert Strauss?
Was it Halbert Strauss part of that too?
Oh, Halbert Strauss. Yeah, it was Halbert Strauss. I think it was Ethan Strauss too.
Yeah.
They had a team.
And you know what? We enjoyed it because they, as much as they were stat nerds, they found a way to balance it out, and they gave us the hoops kind of talk. They knew the game and they knew their stats, and I could respect it. And again, big fan of the Patino game. But then Amin started getting real arrogant, or at least he was projecting arrogance, since that was his online social footprint. That was who he wanted to project. He was getting his matrix of the digital projection of the person he wanted to be. And I'm like, yo, bro, you gotta stop talking like that, because you really not that, bro. You know what I'm saying? So now to see this jump shot, Mace, that jump shot tells me that you are, in fact, an unathletic dork. You know what I mean? Who got a little swag because you got that ESPN bag. Maybe I'm wrong, but the coordination on that shot, Mace?
Jesus, and he had all the gear on, like the worst player you've ever seen in the gym. At first, I thought he was paying homage to Wilt Chamberlain, shooting a Big Dipper shot. Then I realized it was a corner three and said this has to be impossible.
Where's the arc? Like you see this right here? That's the arc. Like what? He was like this.
Is there a ligament missing in his wrist? Is he disabled? We can't. I don't want to get canceled on the third episode.
He was doing the Florida State shot. That's what it looked like.
Listen, I mean, just like Job said, I've been, you've been, for the savvy, you've been a media personality, NBA wise, that all of us have known for a long time. I'm looking at everything you've ever said a little sideways now. I remember the infamous Steve Nash Kobe MVP debate he had with Steven Jackson. Listen, somebody show Steven Jackson this video, please.
Because he talks hot. Because the thing is, he's one of the bros. Or at the very least, he can cosplay as one of the bros. I don't know what he does when the cameras aren't off. But what I saw right there, and I'm not even the best basketball player, but my form is tight. You'll never see me looking like Stephen A. You will definitely never see me like Amin El-Hassan. In fact, there's videos on my Instagram of me when my shot went. And there's not no doctored up videos. It was back to back to back, shot falling from different spots on the floor. So I can talk my talk a little bit when it comes to I'll bust me ass one-on-one from the looks of things. You know what I mean? But we done went off the rails. Let's get back on track.
We have apologies. Back to the LeBron and JJ podcast.
LeBron choosing JJ Redick, as you were saying, that's a very interesting choice, Mace.
It is. And listen, nobody right now articulates the game like JJ, so his basketball mind, because he's usually schooling everyone everywhere he goes when he's a guest spot. So hearing him with one of, if not the greatest basketball mind ever, I think we all know that about LeBron. His basketball IQ is off the charts. He's been playing, since I was in junior high school, so he knows everything. So a savvy media choice by LeBron, I can't imagine there being, if we wanted to say we're going to talk X's and O's, who's going to be the third man on the pod? JJ Redick would be the first name on the board. You know what I mean? So very smart GMing by LeBron. I can't get mad at that.
Here's what I'll say. It's very interesting that he chooses JJ, because when you do watch the clips of First Take, some of the best First Take clips are when JJ gets completely annoyed and borderline belligerent when he has to listen to the drivel that Stephen A. and other co-hosts come up with. Not so much Shannon, because Shannon's relatively new, but in seasons past, he would be so sick of the type of basketball talk that was taking place at that First Take table, to where it used to make me wonder, like, does he rock with Stephen A. like that, or is this just a job like ESPN says, or Stephen A. said, I want JJ, and we just collaborate when we don't like each other? I also get that vibe from Jason Williams to Stephen A., because Jason Williams, like, when he gets ready, he also pushes Stephen A.'s buttons a lot. So with that being said, it's like, of course you pick JJ. He has the weakest relationship with Stephen A. We saw how cold they were that game in LA with that dap, where LeBron does a thing that only people, keen eye observers notice. When you don't rock with somebody, but you got to dap them, but you don't make that eye contact, you do the look away before the dap is complete to let you know that, like, I'm giving you respect, I don't mess with you. So it's like very interesting. But to pick JJ, a guy who knows the game, a person who's willing to nerd out about basketball on wax, hell of a choice. I love him, but it immediately makes me wonder, like, what's LeBron James's other game? We already know the reports about him having paid media operatives. The likes of Shannon Sharp that we just mentioned, the likes of Nick Wright. Now you have the lead color voice for the NBA's national TV team, because let's call it what it is. If the NBA finals are on ABC, that means that's the lead team that's the voice of the NBA. Long story short, he is the lead color guy, and you have him in your back pocket. So that means that JJ Redick can't speak ill of the king. If they're potting together, you know what I'm saying? We got the platform. What's the other play here, Mason?
Jog, and now that you mentioned that, that's very important, because JJ Redick, We found out a week ago, but they didn't start talking about this a week ago.
Oh, talk heavy.
LeBron James, I have to assume, because, one of the, quote unquote negatives about JJ is his distaste for, the older players in the game. He's very, forward thinking, but also very, kind of biased towards the new school. I believe, he had a run-in with Bob Cousy. He had an incident where Dominique Wilkins went at him because he said Larry Bird, didn't face too much pressure, as much pressure as Steph Curry. You know what I mean? He's been kind of like the beacon for new NBA, new media. You know what I mean? Kind of in a similar way to Draymond. So it's kind of interesting thinking about the stance that JJ has taken since he's entered the media game. Thinking to myself, has LeBron been in his ear the entire time? Is this, and I'm not calling, JJ's, integrity into question, but you got to think about it, because at the end of the day, we know, obviously, JJ is, one of the biggest names in media now. We compliment him every week. But at the end of the day, this is LeBron James. JJ was a role player in the league when LeBron was dominating for years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure there's a little bit of reverence he has just on a basketball level when he's in the presence of LeBron James, or just having that access to LeBron James. So yeah, it is very interesting considering how JJ has spoken recently, or, in totality, thinking to myself, how much of this is, kind of like the bullhorn for the LeBron James camp? JJ, don't kill me. I'm just asking a question.
You know what? I disagree. I think that this is a chess move by LeBron, because JJ Redick has already established himself as a trustworthy NBA voice. There's a lot of former players who go to media or they do the podcast route, and their takes aren't respected. You look at All the Smoke as an example. When All the Smoke waves the Kobe flag, a lot of the NBA scribes kind of resent it, and they feel like these are just former players who don't appreciate certain nuances of statistical arguments.
Absolutely.
JJ Redick is the only guy who's found a way to thread that needle between statistical talk, X's and O's talk, and angry old player talk. He's the best at it. So, but what LeBron James did is what he's always done. If I'm gonna do something, let me find the best possible partner to run the floor with. In this case, the pod floor, and see what we can do. It's a genius play by LeBron to do that, because now whatever he says immediately the volume gets turned up on it, because it's LeBron James. But then you got somebody who's super respected. So when they get into the hoops talk, you'll immediately look crazy disagreeing. Stephen A is already talking about, JJ is this and JJ is that, but I won't let LeBron. And it's like LeBron don't care about you with that, Stephen A, because you've already criticized him. Stephen A criticizing LeBron James is like getting a McChicken from McDonald's. It's expected. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like LeBron is trying to control he's trying to puppeteer every angle of basketball. He's trying to make it to that when you retire, this podcast and the things that will come out from this podcast is going to show that everything about basketball, you got to go through the king. It's a genius play, Mace. I love it. But, we're being skeptical. Do we like the podcast? What do you think, Mace?
I like the podcast, especially this is, I guess you can call it the pilot episode. This is, you could have spoke about anything on the first episode, right? I enjoyed the podcast. High level basketball talk, speaking about things that if you're not a real fan of the game, they might be talking French to you. You know what I mean? These are the kind of conversations that me and you have had personally, Job, speaking about a random team and about the sets they running. Obviously not on the level of LeBron and JJ guys. We're not trying to say that, okay? But just the type of talk that real basketball fans have with each other. You know what I mean? Something that I mentioned Kobe's detail earlier, you know what I mean? And how Amin said that was basically a type of show that felt like being in a film session. It's that type of situation. It's like being at a table and just watching a conversation between two basketball titans, you know what I mean, battling of the mind. Listen, it's a great idea for a show. I expect to see a lot of people try to bite the idea. I can't imagine, I don't know who we gonna get. Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson gonna come out with a show. I don't know who can compete with this. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, so
I know who.
I can think of a couple guys, but it is. I'm impressed. It's a great idea, well executed, and in seeing as this is the first episode, I can't imagine it not even getting better, Joe.
You know what? And I think with so much negative conversation surrounding the NBA and the quality of play, this is necessary because there's so many people who watch basketball or they pretend they like the game. They just like the casual nature of seeing dunks and the bright lights and the cute uniforms and the playoff games, so you could be in the bar, being in the conversation and things of that nature. But it's good to have someone like LeBron be able to explain the game with someone who can, because from what I see, JJ's not going to sit there and be a puppet. He's not going to say yes. He's going to counter some of the things that LeBron has to say. I think that's great for the game. I enjoyed episode 1. I'm not sure how much legs this type of podcast has for casual fans. So that's where I'm going to see how long does this pod stick around. Because again, if you're not screaming and saying I'm the GOAT or this and that, or some real simplistic hoops discussion, you've immediately created a specific niche audience for this pod. Now, again, it's LeBron James, one of the biggest stars in the world. So his niche ain't our niche. It's not even all the smoke niche, as an example.
Right.
There's going to be a ton of people, but I just feel like the way people consume ball and the way they've been programmed to consume ball by those big networks, X and O talk is going to get real funny really quickly. So I'm curious to see what the lifespan of the pod is, but I'm a fan. I'll be in tune with everything. All I'll say is, JJ, no more long monologues at the top of the episode. We need you to get right into it.
Get into your bag, man.
You know what? If there were two players who I believe could do a similar type of show and do it at an even higher level than LeBron and JJ, it's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And recently there's been a conversation spawned by Draymond Green where he says that when you think of the scorer Kevin Durant is, that person that you think Kevin Durant is actually Kyrie Irving when it comes to skill.
Right.
So that created the question, who's more skilled, Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant? Now, again, Mason and I we know we were going to talk about this. We haven't even loosely had or tippy-toed around it. I don't know what Mason's about to say. So, Mason, who do you got? More skill, KD or Kyrie?
Let's go right there with it. It's KD.
Okay.
I revere Kyrie Irving. I know I have a checkered history. If you've watched the first 2 episodes of the pod, or maybe even seen our show, The Rap Roundtable, with our brothers Dini the Balance and Sin the Rap Snob. Check Dino? That out. I was about to call him Dino. Dini the Balance and Sin the Rap Snob. Check out The Rap Roundtable when you get a chance. But, listen, I got to go with KD because I feel like when people bring up this conversation, most skilled ever, they mean offensive skills. And since they don't say who's more offensively skilled, who's the more versatile scorer, I think of all skills. I think defense is a skill. I think boxing out is a skill. I think, I think passing is a skill. There's skills beyond scoring the ball. And while Kyrie, when it comes to offensive skill, because KD himself had, way before they even played together, put Kyrie in the class of Michael and Kobe. It sounded crazy then, right? Mm-hmm. Back when he said that he was better than Iverson. Now a lot of people have caught up. But when it comes to everything that the game entails, KD is a great defender. KD I think is a more exceptional playmaker. I think that narrowly, because we're talking about the top 0.0001%, I think they're both in the top 5 skills of all time. You know what I mean? But because I don't think that it just means scoring the ball, I slightly give the edge to KD.
Okay. I'm not mad at that. I think this is a tough question to answer because as skilled as both players are, they come with their flaws. Kyrie's not 6'5". He's not the most explosive athlete, although when he wants to, he can get up there. But because of gravity and previous injuries, he picks and chooses when he wants to show that vertical that he actually does have. Shout out to the alley he caught from Luka not too long ago. Kevin Durant is a 7-footer. The right defender can strip the ball from him, because again, tall guys are putting the ball on the floor is difficult. Has KD gotten better at that? Of course, but there's times when we saw in the Brooklyn and Bucks series, when you get up under him, PJ Tucker gave him a hard time. He didn't stop him, but that leverage, shorter guy getting up underneath him, it made life difficult for a Kevin Durant. So they don't come out their flaws. But when it comes to skills, I guess for me, when I think of skills, is what can't you do? Then the answer has to be Kyrie is the most skilled. Because when you think about every aspect of the game offensively, because we're not talking about defense, so we're talking about offense. Kyrie can post you. Kyrie has every mid-range shot you could think of. The three-point shot is there. Of course, the handle is there. He can finish at the basket with both hands. He can shoot hook shots with left hands, apparently. Who knew? You know what I'm saying? So when I look at it that way, it's like he has the most complete offensive package maybe ever. Not that is not to say he's the best player. I want y'all to use your ears because people will just overreact. I'm not saying he's the best. I'm saying when you think about complete, if you're building an offensive player, you're building Kyrie Irving in the NBA. Handle can make the best handle we've ever seen, in my opinion. Some people still holding on to Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson would tell you right now, half the things Kyrie does with the basketball, I cannot do.
It's right? Kyrie, guys. It's Kyrie.
Kyrie Irving's handle is immaculate. His range, because he's not a dude that if you make him shoot the three. No, Kyrie can shoot the three. Kyrie can post you. He has elbow pull-ups from both sides. Again, like I'm just trying to figure out what can't he do? You want him to finish in traffic, finish with contact, he can do that. You want him to run point guard, he can do that. He can play off the pick and roll. He can pull up on a dime off. Everything you see Dame Lillard doing, he can do if he wants to do. And the thing is, Kyrie Irving, the difference between him and a lot of these NBA guys, he's not a foul bandit. He's not out there fishing to draw fouls. He's just out there cooking. So I think he is the most skilled. I think it's Kevin Durant. Like you said, it's the 1% of the 1%. If you're talking about talent, to me, is there a wrong answer? What you can say is, because with KD, he can hit you with the little, you know what I mean? He can ham you if he need to ham you. So it's like, what don't they do?
This is one of the harder questions. This is just like if you go, this is like that Mike and Kobe question. Skill level. And these are people who are maxed out. You mentioned Kyrie, you know what I mean? And I don't want people to, you know what I mean? Because when we just talking about offensive versatility, Kyrie's maxed out. All the sliders are maxed out. Like Kyrie is like, he's like a 40+% three-point shooter. He's like, you know what I mean? Like one of the best mid-range. Like before everything, the first bloviation I really heard about Kyrie is he's the best under the rim finisher of all time. That was the first thing people used to go crazy. Them crazy angles he used to do, the Rod Strickland type shit.
He brought the jelly to the league. The jelly was a high school craze, and Kyrie was doing jelly in the NBA games.
In the NBA games, in playoff series, in NBA finals. So it's like, there's no wrong answer here. You know what I mean? And I even think that Steph is in this conversation. I don't know why Steph gets left out. I feel like those three are maxed out skill-wise. You know what I mean?
Steph gets left out of the conversation because it's optically.
Right.
The handle is there, but it don't look the way Kyrie's looks. You know what I mean? It's a certain. I don't know if I have the word in my vernacular, but there's something a little more unorthodox about the way Steph goes about dribbling the basketball. And certain people kind of front on him.
They do.
Or they, you know what I mean? But it's there. That behind the back, the tween pull up, like it's there.
It's there. He's the one in my top 5 with MJ and Kobe. So that's, you know what I mean? So I really,
top 5 of all time?
Top 5 skilled of all time. Skilled. You know, I don't want people to turn off the pod. You know what I'm saying? But top 5 skilled. But another pause that I have, listen, people might get mad. I don't want to sound like, you know what I mean, Frank Isola, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? When it comes to most skilled, I just feel uncomfortable calling the most skilled ever a guy, KD got the scoring titles,
Okay.
Steph got the 3-point record, it's just I always felt like Kyrie and it could be a million reasons, right? But I always felt like there should be something tangible that comes from, being the most skilled ever. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's been one, back of my head reason why it's always been hard for me to say Kyrie is the most skilled ever.
Here's what I'll say. His basketball skill is only equaled by his ability, you could argue, in some situations to self-sabotage or just be in unfortunate situations. He gets to Cleveland, it's his team, LeBron decides to come back. So his growth gets stunted. He goes to Boston, he gets his own situation, a bunch of young guys, he gets to lead them. He gets hurt. Those guys grow up fast. They don't want to play their role. He has to leave. He chooses to partner up with KD. KD pops his Achilles. He misses the first year. Then you have another situation where he decides, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of punt on that season too, because I think it was the pandemic for one. And if KD's not here, why am I putting more mileage on my body if the goal is to win a championship with KD? And then you have the situation with the Nets and the anti-Semitic comments, depending on who you ask. Was it anti-Semitic? Was it not? But the fact of the matter is, it was a situation that he created. And maybe, in my opinion, to a certain degree, it was dragged by the media and New York lawmakers, and it became a whole thing. So at every point, he's either self-sabotaged, being sabotaged, or just been in an unfortunate situation. So I think that's why we've never seen Kyrie max power for a whole 82-game season where we could get that tangible outcome you're looking at. But somebody say, what about the 16 finals? LeBron doesn't win without Kyrie going like God mode.
This is true. Maybe the biggest shot in finals history, in there with Ray Allen Game 6 and MJ Game 6.
And I put Kyrie shot up there. I want to get this off. I'm sorry, mate. Just because the narrative around that shot, Steph was hurt, regardless of whatever. Isolation, Game 7 on the road against the unanimous MVP, and you hit the game winner. Like that's tangible, if you ask me.
And that's the thing, right? When it comes to Kyrie, and I'm not here to say, every basketball opinion, is from a basketball player is gospel, right? Because we've heard some crazy ones. But when you hear high level, high IQ guys like Draymond saying this, I saw Iguodala say it not too long ago about how Kyrie is the scariest guy to guard in an ISO situation. Just like I mentioned earlier, KD was calling Kyrie the most skilled when he was a Celtic. You know what I mean? So I can't lie. When it comes to the players, in their opinion, Kyrie is definitely the guy. It's very Kobe-ish. You know what I mean? You mentioned all the smoke guys, that entire generation. There's a reverence and a fear when it comes to Kyrie that I have to admit, might tilt the argument a little bit.
Before we move on, I just got to say this. It just shows how poorly run the Brooklyn Nets organization is to have both of these guys, and you let personal animus ruin what should have been at least one championship between the two of them. Because say what you want about whatever Kyrie might have said or what he might have done or whatever the case may be, you do not trade those two high-level talents because things got personal. And the only reason KD decided he wanted to leave was because of what was happening with Kyrie. Like, you don't do that. Joe Tsai might be the worst owner. Sean Marks is a complete buffoon because at the end of the day, you traded both, and what do you have? A playing team. I'm disgusted, but we got to move on.
Yes, sir.
Giannis Antetokounmpo's a hamstring. It's costing him to miss a few games. If you're a sports fan, you know anything about hamstring injuries. Hamstrings and backs are the two worst injuries you could get as far as if you have championship aspirations and you want your team to be healthy. That once you get a hamstring, it doesn't leave. You just hope it gets better. I ask you, Mace, this hamstring from Giannis, is this going to be what cripples Milwaukee's championship hopes?
I'm going to say yeah, Jaw. I came in here ready to say no, especially with how Dame has been playing in his absence. It seems like this is the boost that Dame could have used throughout the entire season. winning with the supporting cast. But Milwaukee is they don't have any room for error, y'all. You know what I mean? If Giannis is not at max power, you know what I mean, for 7 games each series, possibly, Milwaukee hasn't been doing what Boston, and I don't even think Boston is contender, but the analytics, the numbers, everything say Boston is a great team.
Yeah.
Milwaukee hasn't been displaying that, especially since Doc Rivers has become coach. So, you know, usually, and I know that the season that they did win, Giannis suffered a huge knee injury, missed a couple games in the Atlanta series, and they were still able to do it. But they don't have enough room for error. And just like you mentioned, the hammy has taken out Chris Paul numerous trips. You know what I mean? You mentioned the Brooklyn series between them and the Bucks. That's what got James Harden up out of here. The hammy could mess with you. And for somebody who relies so much on explosiveness and what he can do athletically, I gotta say, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's gonna be a major issue on a team that already had a million major issues.
I'm in lockstep with you because this hamstring injury is the kind of injury that, you know, you might not notice it in the first round of the playoffs. Hell, you might not notice it in the second round, depending on the matchup. When you get to that conference finals round, the attrition, I always say there's no random Tuesdays in the NBA. Once you get to the playoffs, there's no bad team you could take it easy on. You get into a conference finals, let's say with a Boston Celtics team, and you got to get into a game 5 situation, a game 6 situation. You guys are playing hard. It's usually around those times of extreme exertion that sore hamstrings or hamstring injuries become major issues. If I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago, 2019 conference finals with the 2018 conference finals with Golden State and Houston, Chris Paul in a game 5, his hamstring finally gave out. But the intensity of that matchup, playing that hard, playing at that pace, it does a number on the body. So I was very loud when the trade for Dame happened. I had them in the finals. If this is what the situation is, and you're telling me Giannis, whose game is heavily dependent on his legs, he's not a guy who can take possessions off offensively and bang you in the post or just sneak around and do things. He's a north and south player. When you're a north and south player and you got to have that explosive first step, you're always one bad step away from some nonsense happening. Like if these injuries for Giannis, these little nagging injuries, I think a couple years ago he had like a lower back situation as well. Right. And they had that pause, that machine that was help working on his body. You know, Giannis needs to develop a little more layers to his game. He needs to get a post game because sometimes if you don't got to run and you got to catch at the top, jab step, 1-2 massive lunging steps in a dunk to get a shot or a layup. If you could just bang a little bit, shoot a smooth PG fadeaway, that takes a little wear and tear off your body. So I'm concerned because they wouldn't surprise me again if we're in a game 5 or game 6 situation against the Celtics, or hell if they run into Miami. Because you know Miami gets to the playoffs, that injury's gonna flare up and they're gonna get up out of here. I'm concerned.
Right, and I mentioned the games he missed. You know, there's some players that no matter how hurt they get, they ain't missing a playoff game. Mm-hmm. LeBron James comes to mind. Giannis, you know what I mean? He missed some time last year in the playoffs because of an injury. Like Giannis can get hurt enough to miss time in the playoffs, and I don't think they can afford that at all. Dame, as much as I like him, he can't lead this unit without Giannis in a tough playoffs that we're all expecting this year. They're not the favorite. Milwaukee would be fighting an uphill battle no matter if they were coming in 100% healthy. So I just don't think that they can afford an injury to their best player. I know Giannis has healed some injuries fast before, but when they won that title, I believe he was 26. Giannis is 30 now. You know what I mean? And I get it. Players playing the 40 and averaging 25 got everybody feeling like everybody can do it. But that's still, just like you say, the pace of the game, he's going to be running all over the place. What happened when Jalen Brunson catches him on a pick switch? You know what I mean? And he got to figure that out. You know what I mean? He gonna be taxing that hand. He pause. You know what I mean? So, listen, it's just Milwaukee's not good enough to deal with this. That's ultimately the way I feel about it, you know?
It's like the more the season goes along before we get into our next segment, the more it feels like, yes, they got Dame Lillard, but they lost that trade, you know? That's how I'm feeling. Unless Chris Middleton remembers how to play or his body gives him enough to get through these playoffs if you're asking these two to carry and you already have one bad hamstring, this is gonna be another early spring for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, and if we're wrong, we'll come back here and we'll give them their flowers. But as of this moment, it's getting late early in Milwaukee. But with every episode of Pace and Space, we get our takes off, we have our topics, but before we leave, we always got to go around the league.
Why not?
With this edition of Around the League, we're going to focus on the standings, the playoff races in each conference. Macito told me he wanted to focus on the Western Conference playoffs specifically, and there was a team that he has his eye on out west that he thinks might be a dark horse, or they're just surprising. I don't know. Mace, who is that team and what you got to say about it?
You know, Jav, I feel like I may be the walking reverse jinx because I spoke to Jav. I told him I wanted to talk to Pelicans because Zion has been playing fantastic. Understated because the stats are not crazy. CJ McCollum providing that vet leadership, that locker room guy.
I already know. I know what he's about to say.
But listen, man, Brandon Ingram, he just caught this knee injury today. You know what I mean? And it's like, geez, you know what I mean? I really felt like these guys, you know, with the way Minnesota and Oklahoma City have been playing, the two young guys, you know what I mean? The way the league felt about Memphis a couple years ago. The Pelicans have been going under the radar. So I was very impressed with their defense, with how well they work as a team. But the reverse jinx himself works, you know what I mean? Because we don't know how bad this injury to Brandon Ingram's knee is. But listen, another team who cannot afford an injury to a star, not at this point in the season. So we hoping for the best because, you know, we Lakers guys, y'all. So, you know, we love to see our Lakers sons go succeed in other places, you know?
We got love for B.I., but this is a tough blow for the Pelicans because as Laker fans, we also know about B.I. When he gets injured, some guys can get right up, miss 2-3 games, throw a little brace on that joint, whether it's an elbow or a knee, and they go and they play. When B.I. gets hurt, it's a minimum of 8 to 10 games. A minimum. You hear me? Not max. Minimum. We might not see B.I. until game 1 of the first round of the playoffs, depending on the severity of the injury. Right. Now, last couple of weeks, we've seen some guys get carried off the floor. Come to find out that those injuries weren't as bad as we thought they were. We thought Jalen Brunson was going to be out for the season in Cleveland that night. Lo and behold, I think he missed a game or two and he was back. So let's hope that he's more Jalen Brunson with this injury than usual B.I. 8 to 10 minimum missed games, because I think the Pelicans can make some noise. I think Zion Williamson losing 25 pounds since January, getting into shape, finding his niche within this particular offense, because before the Pels head coach and staff overall, they didn't know how to use Zion. Right. They finally figured out how to use this electric player without stifling the people around them. They play strong defense. There's a natural chemistry. And I think they built off of last season's first round playoff exit against Phoenix. Sometimes young teams, all they got to do is get a little taste of that playoff. And then their whole focus is, let's get back there. We're seeing it with Minnesota as well. They got. I think the last couple of they had a play-in situation. Then they had last year. I think they made the playoffs last year. And they got beat in the first round. They played Denver. Denver packed them up. You get those little morsels. You want more. And if you're a true competitor, you do everything in your power to get more. Maybe this is Zion's next evolution. Oh, B.I.'s down. Watch this. Give me the ball, CJ. Let me put y'all on my back right now. I'm in shape. I'm an athletic freak. Jarvin makes us talking about who's the face of the league. When this league was supposed to be mine, LeBron retired. Remember ESPN did the feature game, Lakers versus Pels? It was supposed to be all about Braun and Zion. Now they talking about he said Wemby took his spot. So is Zion, he talking in interviews now. So maybe this is that chance for him to show that, listen, it was always me. He's going to have my new phrase, him activities. We're going to see if he's going to partake of some him activities and see what it is. But the team out west I want to talk about before we go over to the Eastern Conference are the Houston Rockets. Coming into this recording, I don't know if they won the game against Chicago. There was a little hold me back against the Bulls, but coming into the game against the Bulls, they'd won 7 straight games. They're, I think, about a game and a half behind Golden State for that final playing spot. They have a real grown-ass man as their head coach in Ime Udoka. For the time they made that hire and the players they signed, Fred VanVleet, over there as well. You bringing in real vets and homie from Memphis whose name he hasn't earned back yet. He'll get his name back when he stops trying to be something that he's not, because DeMar touched your chin and you didn't even try to do nothing. No. You grabbed the jacket after you caught an elbow. You're not like that. Stop trying to be like that. When you stop trying to be like that, I will grant you your name back. But you sign those kind of vets along with these high-level young players. There was a little scandal with one of their kids, but they got him off the team. They did what they needed to do, but then they essentially replaced him in the draft anyway with another electric player that some argue the Lakers should have drafted. I'm very excited about the Rockets because, to me, it's something about a young team peaking late in the season with a head coach that's holding them accountable, because there were times when those reports came out that the players were mad at the coach because they were getting benched in the fourth quarter. They weren't getting necessary minutes. He made all these players earn their spots, and he's reaping the benefits, and they're talented. This team was never scrubby. They just didn't have leadership. Don't be surprised if a Laker or a Warriors fall off late in the season and the Rockets take that spot, Mace.
Listen, I've been impressed with the Rockets too. A complete 180 from last season. Shouts to Steven Silas. I don't have no issues with you. Love to see black men getting head coaching jobs, especially on a rookie type of level. But he didn't know what to do with this team. The Rockets were like the poster children for, like, you know, undisciplined play. People used to use them as the example of people who don't know how to play the game. Like, I won't say they were jokes, but just, you know, They were the definition of this is what's wrong with the league. You know what I mean? They gave those type of vibes as recently as last season. Even when they got Ime. Listen, Ime kind of got this job as like a, you know, he got to get some sort of job. This is a job nobody else wants.
It was like a job that just like for him to fail.
Right. It's like, let's give him the job where he's just going to have, you know, 30 wins for a couple seasons and be done. So the way the Rockets have played this season, teams were thinking that these guys were going to compete for the first pick in the draft. And from you know, his earlier, you know, verbal scuffle with LeBron, we started seeing, hold up, maybe they got something going on here.
Didn't he call him a soft ass boy? Is that what he said?
He called, and another thing that we said we weren't gonna say on Patience Space. You know what I mean, John?
We can't say that.
We don't do that over here, you know. But I've been very impressed with them. Jalen Green seems like he is finally, you know, getting that potential, the potential that we all thought he had as a young player. He's finally showing it. You know what I mean? Going crazy these past couple weeks.
Did you see that body he caught?
The body he caught.
Bro felt like he was tased, hit the ground crazy.
He also caught a body too, right? And then he had that layup that people are trying to tell me is better than every highlight Michael Jordan ever had in his entire career. I won't go that far. I won't go that far, you know what I'm saying? But I've been super impressed. You mentioned, you know, they had a younger player who they thought had potential as well, who had a couple of issues off the team. So maybe it seems like, you know, maybe one of the knuckleheads got out of the locker room. You got some adults in the room. I know there's the other young guy who I can't remember. Somebody compared him and Jalen Green to a young Vincent T-Mac not too long ago. But very impressive team. I won't go as far as to say that they'll, you know, mess with the best play-in tournament of all time. They better not. You know what I mean? Because I'm banking on this being like the all-time play-in of all play-ins. You know what I mean? So I hope, you know, as much. Listen, I got love for the Rockets, but they better wait till next season. All right. So, but I have been very impressed with them. Ime is looking like the coach to Boston Celtics, which they had, don't you think?
Listen to me. And again, going back to the Brooklyn Nets, the worst ran organization, because you had Ime and you let the scandal scare you away from the perfect coach. You get Ime in that locker room, and Kyrie probably chills out a little bit. KD chills out a little bit because he's a grown man and he knows how to reach grown men. See what happened in Boston. And they chill out. And they might have gotten the championship out of the deal. The worst ran organization. But yeah, that playing in the Western Conference, if we get, what would it be? Lakers, Kings, Phoenix, Golden State?
It's be Mavericks, Lakers. Oh, Phoenix, Mavericks.
No, the Mavericks is in the 6th spot right now.
Oh, they moved up to 6?
Yeah.
They playing too well right now. I need the Mavericks in that playing. I need the Mavericks. the Kings Lakers. Listen, we done lost too many against them. I don't trust it. You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's fair. But Luka versus Braun, KD
Luka,
versus
Braun, Kyrie. You know what I'm saying?
Stories write themselves.
KD and Steph. Like, come on, man. This is like Adam Silver is figuring out what games to get Scott Foster to as we speak.
I see the vision. Out east, not the same energy because it's not as competitive. But the one thing I want to say is, without really going too crazy, I don't want to be the team that has to see Miami or Indiana. Those two teams are going to be very annoying in the playoffs, I believe, Mace.
Indiana, I feel, has sputtered out a little bit. Tyrese Halliburton, he's dealing with a little hammy issue, isn't he? I know he's been dealing with a lingering
scoring and the pace. That's going to be annoying, man.
And since that Siakam trade, they have definitely looked very, very dangerous. You know what I mean? I agree with you. Don't nobody want to see Miami, bro. Like, Miami somehow in 2024 still plays like 1997 Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, Miami Heat. Shouts to Pat, shouts to Spo. You know what I mean? Shouts to that ugly, Heat culture court that they have and those ugly Heat culture jerseys. You know what I mean? But listen, I wouldn't. The East is also dangerous, and the top teams in the East are suffering from drastic injuries. Yeah. Cleveland, Milwaukee, New York. So I agree. Any of those lower seeded, I don't want to say any of those lower seeded teams, but Indiana, who I get the in-season tournament doesn't mean anything, but they were the most important games that a lot of those players on Indiana played. You know what I mean? So that was good experience, just because all experience is good experience. So yeah, I can see them,
you see the vision.
Messing up a couple parlays, you know what I mean? Losing Dini some money,
And think about it. If Cleveland, the 6th spot becomes gospel, it becomes gold. If Cleveland starts to sputter, or D Mitch with the platelet-rich plasma, whatever he's doing in his knee is not quite working out, they become food in the first round. Garland can't do it by himself. Jared Allen ain't an offensive threat. He's great on the defensive side, but the depth for Cleveland, to me, they need their stars to be stars in order to lift up the role players. So if you're telling me Donovan Mitchell has a bad will, I'm telling you that they're food in the first round.
Cleveland, to me, is the best team that nobody's afraid of. The Knicks kind of dismantled them last season in the playoffs. They came, I feel like Cleveland were the favorites, especially, with one of the 70-point guys, Donovan Mitchell. So yeah, even though Cleveland, they have the talent, Donovan Mitchell has, historically been one of the greatest playoff scorers of all time. I'm not exaggerating there. Check the statistic, guys. Multiple 50-point playoff games. He gets busy in the playoffs. But for Cleveland, they don't have a great home court advantage. Their players aren't, other than Donovan, their players aren't necessarily playoff risers. I can see them being a team that conks out in the first round. You know what I mean? Like, they give me those vibes. Of all the higher seeds in the East, they definitely get the most vibes like that.
You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting. We are approaching playoff season. Basically, it's March Madness, and then after March Madness, we are all in playoff mode, and we lock in through June. And I'm excited to see what happens, where the matchups are, what the play-ins look like. And this is Pace and Space. Mesito, take us home, man.
Hey, man. That's your boy, Jav. They call him the point guard on my block. I don't know about yours. I'm your boy, Mesito, and this is Pace and Space. We see y'all next time.
Yes, sir.